Luke and I grew up together, childhood sweethearts from a young age. We maintained a more than friends, less than lovers dynamic, with neither of us daring to be the first to confess our true feelings. That day, I went to Luke's apartment to drop something off. When I opened the door, I walked in on him and a girl kissing passionately on the sofa, seemingly unable to pull apart. The next second, the girl, startled by the sound, shrieked and covered her chest with her hand. Luke lazily glanced my way, his tone laced with sarcasm. What, never seen a couple kiss before? Luke and I came from families that were tightly knit since childhood. Our fathers were old classmates for else., and our mothers were best friends, and we all lived in the same neighborhood. From a young age, I always loved being around Luke. The adults from both families would always joke, saying that if we ended up together when we grew up, it would be a perfect match, keeping the families even closer. Every time I heard them tease us like that, I'd act reserved on the outside, but my heart would swell with delight. Because I had liked Luke since I was little, from 18 to 25, my birthday wish every Ilar was always the same: I hoped Luke would become my boyfriend. So far, that wish had not come true. My best friend, Isla, couldn't stand it anymore and offered advice. What's the worst that could happen if you just told Luke how you feel? If he says Islas, your wish comes true. If he says no, it means he doesn't like you. If you keep this one-sided crush going, you're only making it hard on yourself. I decided to follow Isla's advice. It just so happened that my mom had brought back some vegetables and fruits from Grandma's farm in her hometown, and she asked me to take some to Luke. I thought, this would be the perfect opportunity to tell Luke about my feelings for him. If he really wasn't interested in me in that way, then I would stop liking him from then on. Luke had started a business with classmates in college, and after graduation, he bought an apartment overlooking the river with his own money, without relying on his family. I had been to this apartment many times. At my insistence, Luke reluctantly changed the door code to my birthday. Every time I came over, I would just enter the code and open the door. Luke had never said anything about it. Just like countless times before, I entered the code, opened the door, and called out as I stepped inside, Luke, I brought you some treats. There was a few seconds of silence in the air, then a girl's shriek suddenly pierced it. I stared at the two disheveled people on the sofa, so shocked that the bag in my hand dropped to the floor with a heavy thud. The man was Luke, and the girl was Luna, the sister of Luke's business partner's friend. I had met her a few times. Luna's lipstick was smudged, and she instinctively raised her hand to cover her chest, looking at me in a panic. Luke, in contrast, was very calm. His shirt was wide open, and he looked at me with an indifferent, slightly lazy gaze. What, never seen a couple kiss before? In real life, I truly hadn't seen anyone else kiss. Books said that only two people who truly liked each other would spontaneously embrace and kiss. Was that how it was with Luke and Luna? After a brief moment of panic, Luna hurriedly got up and went to the bedroom to tidy her clothes. Just as she was about to reach the bedroom door, she glanced back at me. I saw a challenge in Luna's earless. I pressed my lips together, averted my gaze, and picked up the bag that had fallen to the floor. These are all things my mom brought back from Grandma's house. She asked me to drop some off for you. I placed the bag on the table and looked up at Luke, who was slowly buttoning his shirt. A dull ache spread through my heart. Having seen it with my own eyes, I didn't know why I was still holding on. I asked him, are you and Luna together? Haven't you already seen you? S. I had liked Luke for so many Islars, and I had been so obvious about it. I didn't believe he couldn't feel it at all. Perhaps it was just as Isla had said before, Luke wasn't unaware of my feelings, he just knew and chose not to acknowledge them, simply leading me on. I had my own principles and boundaries. Since Yen already had a girlfriend, I would keep my distance from him from now on. I smiled at him and said, alright, I get it. Congratulations on finding someone. Luke's lazy smile faltered. As I turned to leave, I heard him call my name, but I didn't look back. I practically fled the neighborhood. The calm I had feigned completely shattered when Isla called. The moment I answered, I was sobbing, gasping for air. What's wrong, what's wrong? Isla asked anxiously. Did that jerk Luke upset you? I cried as I spoke, stumbling over my words for quite a while before I managed to explain what had happened. Isla was both angry and heartbroken. She scolded me for being so naive, but then told me to wait right where I was. She would come pick me up immediately. I squatted on the roadside outside the neighborhood for over half an hour before Isla arrived in her flashy red sports car. Come on, sis is taking you out to find some hot guys, tall, well-built, with 8-pack abs. Isla pulled me into the car. As she drove, she kept chattering in my ear, "Haven't you heard that saying? The best way to forget an old flame is to find a new one. Three-legged toads are hard to find, but there are plenty of handsome guys with two legs. Why are you so stubbornly crying over this one man?" I knew all the logic, but Luke was the person I had loved throughout my entire youth. Just thinking about him and Luna wrapped up, kissing passionately on the sofa, still made my heart ache terribly. While the car was stopped at a red light, Isla saw my red Islas and sighed, then reached out to stroke my hair, saying, "Chloe, it will all pass." A few days later, Luke's father was celebrating his birthday. In previous Islars, when the elders of either family had a birthday, we'd usually find a hotel restaurant or something similar, and both families would gather for a nice meal. This Ilar was no exception. Around 5 o'clock that afternoon, when my mom was urging me to change and put on makeup, I dragged my feet, eventually asking quietly, "Can I not go?" "Why not?" My mom looked at me, puzzled. "You're usually the most eager for these kinds of events, aren't you? What, did you have a fight with Luke?" After a moment's hesitation, I told my mom the truth. "Luke has a girlfriend now, and she'll probably be there tonight." Then I gave her a somewhat edited account of what I had seen in the apartment that day. My mom was stunned for a moment. It wasn't surprising that she was surprised. After all, both families' adults had known about my crush on Luke since we were kids. They had long seen Luke and me as a couple. My mom only paused for a bit before quickly recovering. She grabbed my hand and said, "Then all the more reason for you to go. What are you afraid of?" I refuse to believe my daughter is any less than Luke's girlfriend. My mom told my dad about Luke having a girlfriend. They both agreed that I absolutely had to go tonight, otherwise it would look like I was backing down. My mom personally picked out a very elegant silver-white Chanel-style dress for me and helped me with my makeup and hair. She was the associate editor-in-chief of a fashion magazine, with impeccable taste. My mom got me all spruced up and pretty, then, finally satisfied, she called my dad, and the three of us headed out. At the hotel, Luke was the last to arrive. I instinctively looked behind him, but even after the private room door closed, I didn't see any sign of Luna. My mom asked with a smile, "Why didn't Ayen bring his girlfriend along?" Luke's aunt and uncle exchanged glances. Luke's aunt said, "Girlfriend? What girlfriend? He's a complete bachelor." Why mom's smile remained. "Ayen's girlfriend is quite beautiful. Our saw her with her own Islas, he even brought her back to his apartment." Luke's aunt and uncle exchanged bewildered glances again. Luke glanced my way. He picked up a drink, poured it for everyone, and then said with a laugh, "Chloe is just kidding. That wasn't my girlfriend, just my business partner's sister." I stared at him, dumbfounded. What did Luke mean by that? He and Luna were practically that intimate, and he still wouldn't admit she was his girlfriend? And that day, Luke even asked me, "Haven't you ever seen a couple kiss before?" Now he's denying it. Luke's aunt and uncle just thought I might have had some kind of spat with Luke, which was why I was deliberately saying such things. Even my dad thought the same. Only my mom stood firmly by my side, speaking to Luke with a barbed tongue throughout dinner. After dinner, before cutting the cake, I went out to use the restroom. The hotel had a pleasant ambience. At the end of the restroom hallway, there was a window where you could see the distant city lights. I decided to get some fresh air before going back in. Before I knew it, Luke arrived. He lit a cigarette and stood next to me, exhaling plumes of smoke. For a while, neither of us spoke. After about 2 or 3 minutes, Luke held the cigarette between his fingers and said, "Luna and I aren't in the kind of relationship you're imagining." I couldn't help but wonder, if I hadn't burst through the door so abruptly that day, would Luke and Luna have gone even further on the sofa? They were already that intimate, and Luke still denied it. I nodded. "That's your business. You don't need to specifically explain it to me." "Chloe." Luke frowned at me. "You're an adult too, don't you understand that adults consensually fulfill their physical needs?" I looked at him, shocked and disappointed, as if I were meeting him for the first time. Finally, I shook my head. "I don't agree with your perspective. Luke, you were like that with Miss Isla. You refused to acknowledge her as your girlfriend, just like you've done with me. For all these Islars, you clearly knew how much I liked you. You enjoyed my infatuation and affection, Islet you never once reciprocated. To be frank, in your heart, I'm no different from Mississippi. You relish in our affection, but you have no desire to return it." I said all this in one breath, feeling as though the suffocating feeling in my heart had finally been released. My steps were light as I turned and walked back towards the private room. From that moment on, I had truly and completely let go of Luke. However, I wasn't paying attention and bumped into a man just as I reached the private room door. Careful, he reached out and steadied my arm. "I'm so sorry." After apologizing, I looked up and realized I knew him. He was Max, the son of my mom's magazine editor-in-chief. I'd met him a few times when my mom took me to the magazine's team-building events or dinners. The man in front of me was young and tall, dressed in a white tracksuit. He had a prominent nose bridge and striking, well-defined facial features. "Chloe?" Max immediately called out my name. My expression was a bit awkward, and my mind froze for a moment. I wasn't sure what to call him. "Don't you remember me?" Max smiled, extended his hand, and said, "Then let's reintroduce ourselves. Hello, Chloe, I'm Max." "Hello." Max and I shook hands, and I simply pretended that I genuinely didn't remember him. After we chatted for a bit and exchanged WeChat contacts, he left. Luke saw Max and me talking by the private room door. For some reason, he had a sullen expression on his face the entire time we were cutting the cake afterward, as if someone owed him money. It was completely baffling. For the next few days, Isla and I were busy with our online women's clothing store, so I didn't see Luke again. After we finished that busy period, I learned from my dad at dinner that Luke had been hospitalized. Apparently, Luke was leaving work after overtime, and there were some drunks causing trouble downstairs. Luke was caught in the crossfire and was hit on the head with a bottle by one of them. My mom was away on a business trip, and my dad also had to leave urgently for one, so he asked me to visit Luke at the hospital tomorrow. I agreed. After all, no matter what had happened between Luke and me, our family's long-standing friendship was there. It would be rude if no one from our family visited him in the hospital. The next day, when I arrived at the hospital with a fruit basket, Luna was also in the room. I didn't know if Luke had said something to her, but Luna's eyes were a little red. When I entered, Luke looked up. His forehead was bandaged, and he had a few scratches on his face, but they didn't look serious. "You two talk," Luna said, sniffing a little, and got up, intending to leave. To my surprise, Luke grabbed her hand and said with a smile, "Chloe and I grew up together. There's nothing we'd talk about that you can't hear." A look of surprise flickered across Luna's face. I, on the other hand, sighed inwardly. Because I suddenly remembered that every time I wanted to be alone with Luke, he always liked to bring one or two other people along. Sometimes, when it was just the two of us, Luke would even call friends over. It turned out that for a long time, Luke had been using these methods to show that he didn't like me. It was my own naivety in love that kept me from realizing it. I couldn't help but marvel internally. See? When you're not blinded by love, your mind becomes so much clearer. Luke continued to hold Luna's hand. I didn't know if he was doing it to spite me, or to prove something. Before, I might have felt jealous and sad, but not anymore. After a few minutes, I said I had other commitments and got up to leave. I just didn't expect to run into Max in the lobby downstairs. He was wearing gold-rimmed glasses and a sharp suit, standing out distinctly in the crowded lobby. "Chloe?" Max held a bag of medicine. "What are you doing here? Are you not feeling well?" "No," I explained to him. "A neighbor's brother is hospitalized, and I'm visiting on behalf of my parents." Max was at the hospital to pick up traditional Chinese medicine for his mom. We walked out while talking. Seeing that I was about to call a taxi, Max said, "Where are you going? I can give you a ride." "No need to trouble you, I'll just take a taxi. It's no trouble at all." Meeting Yu's gaze, hidden behind his glasses, for some reason, I felt my heart suddenly skip a beat. He was ridiculously handsome. Refusing again would seem pretentious, so I nodded, and Max smiled as he opened the passenger door for me. Luke was hospitalized for 3 days. The day he was discharged was Saturday. Luke's aunt and uncle had a very important event to attend, so they asked me to come help Luke with the discharge procedures. When Yen saw me, he frowned slightly. "No need to trouble you. Luna will be here soon." Since he put it that way, I wasn't going to make a fool of myself by staying, so I said, "All right, then I'll be going." But before I had walked 2 steps, Luke called out to me again, "Chloe, what's your relationship with Max?" Max was a renowned lawyer. He had even handled a copyright dispute case for Luke's company before, so I wasn't surprised that Luke recognized him. But why was Luke asking? After we exchanged WeChat contacts, Max often chatted with me. When he found out I was planning to get my driver's license, he even helped me find a driving school and looked up a lot of information for me. I could tell that Max probably had a soft spot for me. "Currently, we're just friends," I told Luke. "But who knows what the future holds." Anyway, both Max and I were single. Even if we did get together, It would be open and honest, not bothering anyone. No sooner had I finished speaking than Luna pushed the door up and entered. Luke suddenly changed his mind. He said to me, "Chloe, since my parents asked you to help, please go ahead and handle my discharge procedures." Luna was wearing a dark blue sleeveless dress, with her long hair flowing freely. She lived up to her name, looking delicate and captivating. She nodded a greeting to me, then walked straight to Luke's side. Luke reached out and pulled Luna down to sit, and whether intentionally or not, Luna ended up sitting on his lap. I turned and left. After completing the discharge procedures, I didn't go back to the hospital room. Instead, I called Luke to let him know. Since his girlfriend was there and I had finished the paperwork, it was only natural for Luna to take him home. Luke didn't say a word, he just hung up after I finished speaking. I pouted. How rude. Then I felt a bit puzzled, wondering how I had put up with such an impolite Luke for all these years. As I left the hospital, I received a call from Max. "I promised to teach you how to drive. Are you free today?" Issless, I am. I checked the time and asked him, "Where are you now? I can take a taxi to meet you." "No need, I'll pick you up." Max's voice was very pleasant, especially coming through the phone. I felt a tingle in my ears. I sent Max my location. Coincidentally, he was nearby, and his car arrived in less than 20 minutes. Even more coincidentally, just as Max's car pulled to a stop, Luke and Luna also emerged from the hospital. Luke's good friend, Henry, was there to pick them up. "Hey, Chloe!" Henry shouted loudly when he saw me. "You're here to pick up Old from the hospital, right? Come on over, ride in my car." What are you babbling about?" Luke glared at Henry. "Can't you see she has a luxury car picking her up? Let's go." Henry let out an "ah," his face full of confusion. I, on the other hand, subconsciously looked at Max's car. He had driven this car before, but I didn't know much about cars and didn't recognize the brand. I secretly looked it up on my phone and only then realized it was a Porsche. Luke and Luna were already in the back seat of Henry's car. Just before Henry got into the driver's seat, he had a sudden impulse and asked me, "Chloe, is this gentleman next to you your boyfriend?" I froze for a moment, but my mouth reacted faster than my brain. "He is my boyfriend." Henry's expression was odd. He got into the car, started the engine, and quickly drove off. Max next to me had a pleased expression on his face, and his voice was several shades lighter. "Let's go." Too, he paused, then added, "Girlfriend." My face flushed instantly. I wanted to explain what had just happened to him, but I didn't know how to start. So I just mumbled a vague and got into the car. I passed my driver's license test very smoothly. This was largely thanks to Max's private coaching and help, so I decided to treat him to a meal. We made plans to have Cantonese food together on the weekend. Before heading out, I put on some light makeup and wore the somewhat subtly sexy smoky blue dress my mom brought back from her last business trip. My mom saw me and exclaimed, "Well, look at you. Dressed up so nicely, going on a date, are we?" "With whom?" My dad chimed in, "Who else? That kid from the Luke family, of course." It's about time, old son finally wised up. Before my mom could react, I quickly clarified, "It's not Luke, it's someone else. It's not even a date. He just helped me a lot when I was getting my driver's license recently, so I wanted to treat him to a meal." "Is it Max?" My mom looked at me, her gaze becoming meaningful. My mom was the associate editor-in-chief of the magazine, and Max's mom was the editor-in-chief, so they had a good relationship, and my mom knew Max. The past few times I was late coming back from driving practice, Max was the one who drove me home. My mom hadn't asked much then, but now, bringing it up, she grabbed my hand and pressed, "Sweetie, are you two together?" Not Islet. "It's okay if you're not together, Islet. You're already dating, it's just a matter of time." Enduring my mom's gossipy gaze, I bit the bullet and left the house. After having lunch with Max, there was an exhibition nearby, and he suggested we go see it together, so we did. I didn't really understand the exhibits at the show, so Max acted as my guide, patiently explaining each one to me. Max was gentle and patient, handsome, had a good job, and a nice personality. Max's voice chimed in my ear, "Chloe, what do you think of me?" I was still holding the strawberry milk tea Max had just stood in line to buy. Hearing his question, I stared at him, bewildered. "What do you mean, what do I think of you?" Max didn't speak, just looked at me with a profound gaze. A sudden realization struck me, and I blurted out, "You want to be my boyfriend?" Max looked away, his ears a little red. I blinked. Was he shy? Taking a big sip of milk tea, I pretended to ponder, then told him, if you want to be, then be my boyfriend. I didn't say no, did I? Max's lips curved into a smile, and then he naturally took my hand. His hand was large. I wondered if the calluses on his thumb and index finger pads were from holding pens so much. As he brushed my palm, it sent a strange tingle through me. When we left the exhibition, neither of us was the first to suggest going home. We just walked slowly forward, hand in hand. There were several claw machines outside the mall. I was the type who was terrible at games but loved to play them. Even though Isla and I had never managed to win anything when playing claw machines together, every time I saw them outside, I still felt a strong urge to try. Max hadn't played before either, but he was amazing. After studying it for a bit, he figured it out. He put in a coin and snatched a prize every single time. I watched, dumbfounded. Max took my hand. Chloe, I'll teach you. While you was guiding my hand to play the claw machine, I didn't think much of it. It was only after we finished that I realized how intimate our posture had been. He seemed a little shy too, both of his ears were red. Since he was shy, I didn't feel awkward at all. I even asked him, why are your ears so red? Did a bug bite them? Max gave me a meaningful look but didn't say anything. We had dinner out, and Max didn't take me home until afterward. When the car stopped downstairs at my apartment complex, it was only a little past 8, so it wasn't too late. I hesitated, wondering whether to invite Max upstairs for a bit. I usually lived alone and only went home to eat with my parents on weekends or holidays. If I invited Max upstairs, and it was just the two of us at home, would he get the wrong idea? What's wrong? Max noticed I was distracted and squeezed my hand. Nothing. He shook the bag in his hand. It contained over a dozen plushies we had won today, big and small. Max said, the bag's too heavy. I'll carry it up for you. I couldn't help but laugh. Just as I was about to say something, someone called my name from behind me. I turned around and saw Luke's icy face. Mr. Max. Luke looked at Max with a cold expression. Chloe and I grew up together. Her parents are very strict with her. Mr. Max, I think you brought her far enough for the night. Without another word, he snatched the bag of plushies from Max's hand. Chloe, I'll walk you upstairs. I pouted, ignoring Luke, and said to Max, drive safely. I'll be a bit busy tomorrow and the day after. Once I'm done, we can go see a movie together. Max smiled and said, sounds good. Once you turned and left, my expression turned cool when I faced Luke. I took the bag back from Luke. No need to bother you, I can go up by myself. Luke didn't live in this neighborhood. I had no idea why he was here so late at night, and I didn't want any further entanglement with him right now. Chloe. Luke followed me into the elevator, then demanded, are you real? Why with Max? Chloe, do you have no sense? A man like Max? Why would he like you? What is there to like about you? I have no sense? My anger surged from within. I stared at him coldly. Luke, do you really think I'm so worthless? So worthless that I don't deserve any man's affection? That's not what I meant, Luke tried to explain, but the elevator doors had already opened. I didn't give Luke a chance to speak. Stepping out of the elevator, I continued, it's one thing if you think I'm not good enough for you. I can just stop liking you. No big deal. But Max is different from you. I can see the liking for me in his useless. Luke was stunned. Seeing me take out my keys to open the door, he added, how long have you two even known each other? How could he possibly like you? Chloe, you really need to think about this. I couldn't be bothered to say more to him. After opening the door and going inside, I looked through the peephole. It was about 4 or 5 minutes before Luke finally turned and walked away dejectedly. Isla and I were busy for a few days after that. When Z found out I was now with Max, she was thrilled, saying it wouldn't be long before Luke regretted it. My hands kept busy, and I thought she was overthinking it. I saw Luke again a few days later. It was a Wednesday, Luke's cousin's birthday. He had invited a group of close friends to celebrate, and I was among them. Everyone knew about my past crush on Luke, so his cousin, with good intentions, wanted to use the party that night to set us up. Seeing them steer every conversation back to Luke and me, I sighed inwardly and directly told everyone that I already had a boyfriend. The others thought I was just saying it to spite Luke. Until Yen, with a cold expression, said, Chloe does have a boyfriend, and you probably know him, Max, the renowned lawyer who used to advocate for migrant workers' wages. Everyone exchanged glances. The atmosphere became a bit awkward for a moment. It wasn't until someone told a bad joke that the stiff atmosphere finally eased. I ate with my head down, intermittently chatting with Max on my phone. Max said he would come pick me up that evening, so I sent him my location. Seeing that it was getting late, I got up to go to the restroom outside, planning to stay for another 10 minutes or so and then leave. To my surprise, Luke followed me out. He had too much to drink, and his face was flushed. The Aeschylus I once adored were now full of an alluring haziness. Chloe. Luke leaned against the wall, calling my name indistinctly. I frowned at him. Can I help you? Luke didn't speak. He stared at me intently, then forcefully grabbed my wrist. What does he have that I don't? I thought for a moment, then answered without hesitation, he's very good to me. Luke smiled, but it was a bitter smile. Chloe, I wasn't good to you, so you don't like me anymore. Luke was indeed not good to me. When I first realized my feelings for Luke were romantic, I was nervous and anxious, carefully hiding my affection, afraid others would notice. After the college entrance exam, I had originally planned to confess to Luke, but I don't know if he sensed my feelings because he started to distance himself from me. That summer, Luke went to his grandmother's house 1,000 miles away and didn't return until college started. In college, Luke dated 5 girlfriends in total, none of the relationships lasting very long. He probably knew I liked him back then, but he never acknowledged it, always bossing me around, making me run errands and do things for him. Back then, I was blinded by love. Because I liked Luke, I didn't think anything of it. I answered Luke, Islis, you were indeed not good to me. But it was my own fault, I can't blame you. Now I have a boyfriend. He's very kind and considerate to me, and I like him very much. Luke stared at me blankly, his Islis a little red-rimmed. As I pulled my hand away from him, Max's call came in, I turned to leave without hesitation. Max first came to my place about half a month after we started dating. He came to help me move. Isla and I rented a warehouse, but it was too far from here, and commuting every day was a waste of time. So Z found me a 1-bedroom apartment near her neighborhood, very close to our warehouse, so I could walk to work every day. I had a lot of stuff, and it took several trips up and down with boxes and cartons to get everything done. Max didn't complain about being tired, he carried most of the items downstairs. After each trip, he'd lean in, asking me to wipe his sweat and give him a kiss, calling it his energy booster. I teased him with a smile, you're in good shape, Mr. Max. Max lanackled too, then whispered something in my ear. I raised my hand, about to playfully swat him, when Luke's voice rang out from behind us. Uncle said you were moving today, so I came to help. No need to trouble yourself, I smiled and said. My boyfriend has already moved everything down. We just need to wait for the movers to load the truck. Luke glanced at Max, then gave a self-deprecating laugh. It seems I was presumptuous. I pressed my lips together and exchanged a few polite words with him. Soon after, the movers we hired arrived. After everything was loaded onto the truck, Max and I left. Looking out the rearview mirror of the car, I saw Luke light a cigarette and smoke. His face was shrouded in smoke, appearing somewhat dark and indistinct. Max squeezed my hand and started talking about taking Isla out for dinner that evening. Thinking about Isla's favorite foods, I quickly put Luke out of my mind. Max was actually quite busy with work, but no matter how swamped he was, he'd make time every other day or so to have a meal with me, or to catch a movie or go grocery shopping together. One evening, about half a month later, Max took me to a private club to meet some of his friends. As we were leaving after dinner, we happened to run into Luke and his group. Luna was linking arms with Luke, and I didn't know what she was saying to him, but Luke's expression remained indifferent. They were all acquaintances, so when we bumped into each other, everyone exchanged greetings. Just then, my mom called. I excused myself to Max and hurried a few steps out of the club to answer the phone. On the phone, my mom asked if I planned to bring Max home for a meal during the national holiday. If so, she wanted me to let her know in advance so she and my dad could prepare. I did have that intention, but I hadn't yet decided which day of the holiday to bring Max back. My mom said it was fine, since the holiday was a week long, any day we came back would work. After finishing the main topic, my mom then gossiped about my relationship status with Max, and I mumbled evasively. Max seemed quite proper on the surface, but he was actually a skilled flirt, and a great kisser too. I asked him if he'd practiced, and he said no, it was natural talent. I talked to my mom for about 10 minutes. When I hung up, Max had just come out from inside. My mom asked which day we're coming back, I said, walking over and linking my arm with Max's. Which day are you free? Any day works. I looked up at Max, feeling his answer was a bit dismissive, and couldn't help but ask, what's wrong? Nothing. Max smiled at me. Come on, I'll take you home. Max didn't say a word the entire way. I sensed his mood was off, but no matter how much I racked my brain throughout the drive, I couldn't figure out what Max was angry about. When I used to like Luke, I always kept my feelings hidden. But after getting together with Max, I secretly decided that whatever happened between us, we had to communicate clearly. Isla had told me before that many couples misunderstand each other simply because they don't talk it out. So when the car finally stopped, I asked directly, Max, are you mad at me? Max stared at the steering wheel, not swearing my question. A wave of injustice washed over me. I hadn't done anything, so why was he giving me such a stony face? After a few seconds of silence, just as I was about to push the car door open and get out, Max finally spoke. He said, tonight, Luke told me you've liked him for many hours, and the only reason you're with me is to spite him. Max continued, I know I shouldn't dwell on your past, but the self-satisfied look on Luke's face when he told me all this still makes me incredibly angry. So what? My heart clenched. I asked him calmly, are you going to break up with me? I'm not mad at you, Max said. I'm mad at myself. I liked you a long time ago. If only I had pursued you earlier, perhaps you wouldn't have foolishly liked Luke for so many hours. What? My ears widened in surprise as I stared at Max. You mean you've liked me for many hours? Max sighed. In high school, you visited our house with your mother. The first day I saw you, you were wearing a blue and white school uniform dress, with your hair tied in a bun. He gazed at me intently. Chloe, do you know what love at first sight feels like? I shook my head, dumbfounded. Max went on, later, several times, my mom's magazine agency had team building dinners. I usually didn't want to go, but my mom would tell me you'd be there. Slowly, it dawned on me. Back then, I liked going with my mom because there was good food and fun things to do. And her magazine also had many pretty young women to look at. But I'd never wondered why Max was so often present. At that time, my heart and mind were entirely focused on Luke. No matter how handsome or outstanding other guys were, I wouldn't give them a second glance. Max told me he had originally planned to confess his feelings to me gradually, but when he accidentally learned of my feelings for Luke, he gave up on the idea. Max had thought, back then, that Luke and I had mutual feelings. It was much later that he realized it was unrequited love on my part. After we had cleared the air, a bittersweet ache filled my heart, mingled with sadness for Max and for myself. To think that, during those hours I was unaware, someone had loved me with such fervent passion. Max didn't go home that night, staying over at my apartment. We didn't do anything intimate, we just held each other in silence as we slept. As my head rested on Max's broad chest, I felt a peace I had never experienced before. On the third day of the national holiday, I took Max home. My mom and Max's mom already had a good relationship, and my mom knew him, so our first official meeting wasn't awkward or formal. Max brought my dad tea and liquor, and for my mom, a designer handbag and health supplements. My parents were both delighted. My dad, in his happiness, decided to cook himself. My mom, Max, and I sat in the living room chatting. After a while, Max stood up, saying he wanted to help my dad in the kitchen. My mom couldn't stop him. I told her it was fine, Max was an excellent cook. My mom winked at me. How do you know he's a good cook? Have you tasted his food? After dinner, we chatted for a bit. My mom saw the nice weather outside and suggested I take Max downstairs for a walk in the nearby park. There's a small park outside our neighborhood. When I was little, Luke, a few other friends, and I loved going there to play badminton or ping pong. I told Max some fun stories about my childhood and my friends in the park. Just as I was getting excited, Luke's call came in. His voice sounded a bit hoarse, as if he hadn't rested well in a long time. Chloe, I want to talk to you. Whatever you have to say, you can say it over the phone, I replied. I had a jealous man sitting right beside me. Unless it was something truly important, I wasn't planning on meeting Luke alone again. There was a moment of silence on the other end. You brought Max home today? We had run into Auntie downstairs when Max and I returned, so she must have told him. I hummed an affirmation, waiting for Luke to continue. It took almost a minute before he spoke again. Chloe, be honest with me. Are you serious about Max, or are you just trying to make me jealous? Of course I'm serious. I frowned. Luke, I've always been serious about my relationships. I was serious when I liked you, and I'm serious about Max. I'm not going to dwell on what you said to Max that night. I hope you won't do it again. With that, I hung up. Max kissed my forehead, a smile gracing his face as he looked at me. As we were getting ready to leave that evening, Auntie came over and said she wanted to talk to me. I could refuse Luke, but I couldn't refuse Auntie. She was an elder, and she had always been kind to me since I was a child. Max went to the study to play chess with my dad, and my mom was making dumplings in the kitchen, so Auntie and I sat in the living room to talk. Auntie held my hand and sighed. It's our rascal who didn't have the good fortune to keep a wonderful girl like you. She paused, then added, but, I know my son. Doesn't dislike you, he's just bad with words and can't express it. I remained non-committal in my heart. Luke, bad with words? I doubted it. He was quite passionate when he kissed Luna, and he certainly wasn't short on sarcastic remarks towards me. Where was the bad with words in that? Auntie continued to defend Luke. I asked him. Said he and that Luna aren't boyfriend and girlfriend. That girl liked and it just happened to be a time when you were a bit distant from so he impulsively used Luna to provoke you. Even though I don't approve of actions, he is still my son. Auntie asked me, Chloe, I'll just ask you one thing. Do you truly not like Luke anymore? I looked Auntie directly in the eye and shook my head. From now on, I will only see him as my brother. Auntie sighed again, then left. I zoned out on the sofa for a moment. Auntie mentioned that period when I was distant from Luke. That was actually when I was sick and had been hospitalized for a week before recovering. I was afraid Luke would worry, so I asked my parents not to tell him. Auntie said Luke liked me, but I didn't think he liked me. He just got used to my adoration and constant presence. Once I started liking someone else, Luke felt uncomfortable. Mid-November brought Hi Henry its first snowfall of the Ilar. Max was supposed to go with me to Isla's engagement party, but he received a last-minute call requiring him to travel for work to a neighboring city. Max dropped me off at the hotel entrance. The car was parked in a spot outside the hotel, and Max held me for a long, lingering kiss inside the car. Only after I got out did he slowly drive away. My lips felt a bit tingly, and I instinctively reached up to touch them. As I walked up the steps, I saw Luke standing expressionless ahead. I nodded to him as a greeting. After entering the hotel, I went to the restroom to touch up my lipstick before heading to the lounge to find Isla. Isla's fiancé was a senior from our university, a gentle and good-natured man who was utterly devoted to her. Isla was already made up, grinning as she asked me, when are you and your Isla going to tie the knot? Oh, it's still early. I haven't been with him for that long. But he seems really good to you, Isla said, pointing to the necklace around my neck. Max gave you this, didn't he? It cost a small fortune. Let me tell you, to see if a man truly cares about you, you need to see how much he's willing to spend on you. I looked down at my necklace. It was then that I remembered the few gifts Max had given me. They were all quite expensive. I hadn't given him anything substantial in return. By the time Max returned from his business trip, his birthday would be close. I was pondering what to get Max for his birthday when Isla's fiancé knocked on the door and called us out, saying the ceremony was about to begin. I didn't sit at Luke's table but instead joined my university classmates. During dinner, everyone reminisced about our college days, and the atmosphere was quite pleasant. Until someone suddenly asked me, Isla and Senior are engaged. Chloe, when are you and Senior going to tie the knot? I smiled and said, Senior and I are just ordinary neighbors. I already have a boyfriend. He's on a business trip today, but I'll introduce him to you all next time I get the chance. The few classmates who knew I used to like Luke exchanged puzzled glances. They probably thought I was lying, but I didn't bother to explain further. I picked up my glass of juice. After the engagement banquet, I helped Isla and Senior see off the guests and assisted with some post-event matters. It wasn't until the hotel staff came to clean up that Senior exclaimed, Huh? Where's Luke? Indeed, I hadn't seen Luke leave. We searched around and finally found a very drunk Luke on the floor outside the restroom. Why did you drink so much? Senior helped Luke up and asked the hotel staff to assist him to a lounge upstairs to sober up. But Yan refused to go. He was still somewhat conscious. When he saw me, he pushed the staff away and lunged at me. Caught off guard, I was knocked to the floor. Chloe. Luke smiled at me. I knew it. You still like me, don't you? Let's stop fighting, okay? I tried to push him away with all my strength. But he was both strong and heavy, I couldn't budge him. Senior and 2 staff members had to come over and pull Luke up. Luke kept calling my name, saying he regretted everything, and begging me not to be mad at him anymore, promising never to flirt with other girls again. I frowned, listening to him. Luke was making such a scene that the 2 staff members couldn't quite manage him. In the end, Senior had no choice but to help them escort Luke upstairs. You. Isla looked at me with a complex expression. You're not having second thoughts, are you? What are you saying? I smiled. There's nothing between us anymore. Isla breathed a sigh of relief. It's good that you think that way. Luke, I always felt he was too complex and secretive. You, on the other hand, are too straightforward. The two of you really weren't a good match. You and Laislar are a perfect match. Outside, the sky was gradually darkening. Isla pulled me to get a late-night snack, and I didn't leave until Senior joined us. Tiny snowflakes began to flutter from the sky. I shivered, standing at the hotel entrance. Just as I was about to walk down the steps to catch a taxi, a black car suddenly pulled up. While I was momentarily stunned, the car stopped, the driver's side door opened, and Max stepped out. He was wearing the same overcoat he had on when he dropped me off that morning. He looked a bit disheveled from travel, but still incredibly handsome. I froze for a second. The next second, I dashed down the steps and ran towards Max. Watch out. Max jumped in surprise and quickly ran to catch me. I leaped into his arms, wrapping my legs around his waist and burying my face in his chest. Why are you so reckless? Max scolded me gently, steadily holding me as he turned. Haven't you heard the saying? I winked at him. When you see the person you love walking towards you, you absolutely must run to meet them. Nonsense, Max said, though a smile played on his lips. I asked him if he wasn't supposed to be on a business trip, wondering why he was back the same day. I still have to go back the day after tomorrow, Max said, carrying me into the car. He leaned in, kissing me as he spoke. It's boring to stay there tomorrow anyway, I might as well come back and be with you. I felt a sweet surge of happiness, cherished like never before. As his kisses left me breathless, I couldn't help but wonder, what am I going to do? I feel like I'm becoming more and more dependent on Max epilogue. Max's birthday was November 21st. After much contemplation, I decided to give him a ring. As a gift. Max was overjoyed. He held me on the sofa and kissed me for a long time. When my brain was almost starved of oxygen from his kisses, Max linackled and said, "Who ever heard of a girl proposing? But I accept. Chloe, will you marry me?" Max didn't give me a chance to object. He carried me into the bedroom, closing the door behind us, sealing us in a room filled with sweet intimacy. Luke, he couldn't pinpoint when he started liking Chloe. As a child, Chloe was a little plump, loved wearing dresses, and wore her hair in pigtails. Her round face was especially adorable. If it weren't for both families and the neighbors constantly teasing him and Chloe about being a couple someday, Luke thought he probably wouldn't have disliked and resented Chloe so much. Especially during high school, when adolescents experience the first stirrings of love. Back then, several of Luke's buddies, led by Henry, always liked to tease him about Chloe, calling her his future wife. This led Luke to give Chloe an increasingly cold shoulder. Initially, it was out of consideration for both families' reputations that Luke didn't want to bluntly hurt her feelings. Later, he discovered that he strangely enjoyed Chloe's unwavering affection for him. He was unwilling to reciprocate Chloe's feelings, yet he righteously accepted her kindness towards him. Every time Chloe neglected him for something else, Luke would feel incredibly angry. His retaliation against Chloe was to give her the cold shoulder and ignore her. Looking back now, Luke realized he was terribly mistaken. On day, Chloe officially announced her marriage to Max on social media, and the comment section was flooded with well wishes. Luke also liked the post. He looked at the wedding photo Chloe posted with Max, and a searing pain shot through him, as if his heart was being torn apart. Luke also remembered that time Chloe came to his apartment to drop something off. He had known beforehand because he saw Auntie's social media post. And every time Auntie brought back delicious food from her hometown, she would always ask Chloe to deliver it to him. Anything related to him, Chloe would always do immediately. It just so happened that Luna was helping her brother deliver a document to him that day. Luna liked him, Luke had always known. That day, he thought about Chloe neglecting him for work, and he was solely focused on making her jealous, which was why he kissed Luna on the sofa. From beginning to end, only Luna was genuinely invested emotionally. Luke replayed that day countless times in his mind, filled with regret. But time could not be rewound. He couldn't go back to that day, and Chloe no longer wanted him. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section. Feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.